Hey everybody, and welcome to the one where I give you a quick start guide on writing screenplays and how you can use this format to tell your next story. Alright, so you have this awesome idea for your next story, and you've decided that writing it in a short story or a novel isn't quite right. You want to make it into a movie. So where do you start? Alright, so I really think that one of the best places to start when trying to write your first screenplay is understanding the three-act structure that most movies are written in. This structure is pretty simple and straightforward. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end, and we split that up into 3 acts. What most people don't realize is that the way that it's split up is not quite even. So Act 1 is 25% of your screenplay, Act 3, the end of your movie, is 25% of your screenplay, and then that middle chunk, Act 2, is actually 50% of your screenplay. With that, Act 2 being split up into 2 parts, 2A and 2B, each composing half of your screenplay, so 25% each. All right, so one of the most important things that a writer can do is outline before they dive into trying to tell their story. And there are a couple common ways to outline for screenplays that aren't necessarily so common in the novel writing world. And one of the most popular is using note cards. So you go pick up index cards from the store. I probably have a million lying around here. I used them in one of my videos about web development because I always have them lying around. Which you pick up note cards, and each note card is a scene. You write down the scene title and what happens during it, and you put it on a table or on a board, and it's like a big kind of storyboard for you for your writing. So you have X number of scenes in Act 1, X number of scenes in Act 3, and then X number of scenes in Act 2A and 2B. And that way you know that your screenplay is weighted the proper amount. You have the right amount of scenes in your beginning, your middle, and your end to make sure that everything will be smooth and you follow that structure that most people are looking for when they're looking into movies. All right, so the next thing that we should probably learn when it comes to screenplays is outlining. Outlining is an important part about any writing process. Just as much as editing, outlining can save you a ton of headaches when you're trying to write your story. So there's a really common way to outline when it comes to screenplays that works for some and doesn't work for others. It's not exactly my favorite way to outline, but it is something that a lot of people use. And basically what it is, you get a bunch of note cards and you write down scenes on the note card. Each note card represents one scene in your movie. So every time a camera cuts, like you're looking at somebody, interior bar scene, and 2 people are talking. Once we leave that bar, that's a new scene. So that would be a new card. And what you want to do is you want to write on each card where they are, what's going to happen, and like what characters are there. And you lay those out, and you lay them on a table or you put them up on a cork board. You have your roadmap right there, and it's really easy to tell, like if you have 30 cards in Act 1 section and 10 cards in Act 3 section, something's wrong there. Because more so than what novels are, screenplays are very heavily reliant on structure. The industry enjoys understanding that Act 1 and Act 3 are this length and Act 2 is this length, and it all kind of flows together. That's something that you kind of have to wrap your head around and accept that when you're first trying to do this, it's a lot better to kind of work within the confines of what Hollywood wants, and then you can break rules later as you get more experience. All right, so another big thing to think about when it comes to screenwriting, and this plays to the exactly the same way as everyone else kind of theory along with the structure, is formatting. And formatting is a huge deal in Hollywood, and studios have different ways they enjoy like for their particular screenplays to be formatted. As a writer who doesn't have a deal with a studio, you need to use industry standard formatting. And the easiest by far way to do this, if you ever want somebody to read it and not laugh you out of the room, is to use a screenwriting software that is trusted and worth the money you pay for it. The 2 that I've used in the past are Final Draft, which is my personal favorite, not because I know that it's better than every other screenwriting software out there, but because I know that it's the one that I know the best and is kind of the industry standard, like Microsoft Word is the standard for word processing. And then Celtics, which is actually a free online tool that you can use if you have access to the internet. You can use it, and it's free and a pretty good formatting tool and screenwriting tool if you don't want to drop $100 on Final Draft. There are others out there. If you have Scrivener, Scrivener has a movie or screenplay feature on it. I don't know how good it is, but it is also an option out there too. Fun sidebar, if you're one of those creative people that likes to write in different fonts when you're writing, don't do it with a screenplay because, like I said, the industry is rigid and there is no exception to the rule that all screenplays are written in Courier font and 12 point. So if you want to break from that, go ahead, but like I said, nobody's going to take you seriously if you do. All right, so we have our 20-second overview of structure, we have our 20-second overview of formatting. You've played around with a screenwriting software and you've set your text to Courier 12 point, and now you want to dive in and write this screenplay and write your next blockbuster Hollywood movie, right? Well, what I would suggest your next step is, once you get all of those things under your belt, is to take a minute and pick up a couple of screenplays. And the best way to familiarize yourself with any kind of new concept or new formatting is to pick up a screenplay and see how it's done. And the best way to do this is there are free online resources. The Blacklist puts out a list of screenplays for free download every year. And then also the IMDb, acronyms are hard. It's the International Movie Script Database, so IMSDB, puts out free screenplays. You can go to their website and look at them there. And I suggest you to just read a couple. All right, so you've looked over a couple of screenplays online and you're ready to dive in for your very first screenwriting experience. So what should you do to make it so that you don't look like the biggest noob in the entire history of the world? At its most basic, a screenplay is three things. One, it's slugs, which tell the director or whoever is reading your screenplay where and what time-ish your scene is happening. It's 2, action, and it's 3, dialogue. So those are the 3 things that you need to understand how to write in a screenplay. Slugs come at the very beginning. They tell you whether you're inside or outside, so interior or exterior. They have the name of the area which they are, Aaron's bedroom. And then they say whether it's daytime or nighttime. Hyphen, day, or night. It's that simple, but before every scene that you write, if you're switching locations or if it's switching times or if you're switching from indoors to outdoors, you need to add a slug in there to let the people know where we are. Dialogue. Dialogue is one of the hardest things to master, whether you're writing screenplays or novels, but it's something that screenplays rely on heavily. It's a visual format and we have to use words to get parts of our story across and to share motivation of our characters. Dialogue is written in a screenplay. It's formatted towards the center. The character name is in the middle and always capitalized for the character who's talking. Now, dialogue is one of the hardest things to master, and it is very important to a screenplay. It needs to be compact and full of information and full of irony and full of drama. And it's one of those things where if you can nail it, you can really have a career in this industry. Aaron Sorkin is a master of dialogue. If you ever want to read somebody who just has it down, take a look at one of his screenplays. Last but not least, there's the action part of the screenplay. This is what is actually happening on the screen in between when characters are talking. This may be the hardest thing for people to come into a screenplay writing, especially if you're coming from like a novel background. The concept when it comes to writing action is that it needs to be as short as it possibly can be, and it needs to only contain elements that are going to be seen upon the screen. So things that you don't want to say when you're writing action in a screenplay are that Aaron looks upset or Aaron is happy. These are things that you can't really show with a camera. You need to talk about actions of the characters that show that they're happy. Aaron is laughing and holding his belly and slapping his leg. Aaron is in a corner, head in between his legs to show that I'm sad. It's something that is hard to pick up on at first, but you have to make sure that it's something that you do. You don't want to be writing a novel in between lines of dialogue. The point of a screenplay is for it to be short and concise and have lots of white space and to flow, and you're just supposed to be able to rip through pages. It's not supposed to be a dense read. You're not trying to be the next Charles Dickens. This is something that you're getting to the point and you're getting there really quickly visually to make sure that this movie is going to be packed full of awesomeness. This concept of having a lot of white space on the page and making sure your dialogue is centered and making sure that your action scenes are written relatively shortly is something that all helps with the next concept, which is page count. The theory is in screenwriting that 1 page equals 1 minute of screen time. So if you have a 120-page screenplay, you have a 2-hour movie in your hand. That is the theory, and that's why the formatting is the way it is. It's another good concept to remember when you're writing. If you're starting to write and you're only halfway through your movie and you're at page 100, then you're looking at a 3.5, 4 hour long movie once you get to the end, which isn't something that ever gets made. We have to remember to be short and concise and only give the reader and the director the information that they need to create what they need to create on the screen. So is screenwriting for you? I mean, I know that I've been talking a lot about how you need to be quick and how you need to not use so many words and all of that stuff. Like you're just kind of plopping a story down for Michael Bay to come in and do crazy camera flips around awesome CGI and all of that stuff, right? I disagree with that. I think that it takes a very specific kind of writer to enjoy screenwriting. I can maybe feel some people out there thinking about how, well, when I write, I like to go into great detail about everything and I like to describe the inner workings of my character's brain and all of these things, and I don't feel like I'm gonna be able to get that across in my screenplay. And the short answer is you probably won't. That's not your job as the writer. See, in screenwriting, the story is the king. It's about the plot, and that's almost all you're here for. You're here to tell the story from point A to point B to point C and resolve it. The inner workings of your characters' brains are going to be put on display by your dialogue to some degree, and also the way that the actors take that character and run with it. Every little kind of detail and facet of the world that you're creating isn't your job to show when you're writing a screenplay. It's the director's job to film. Because nobody's going to read the words on the page to hear about how the moss grew on the trees where your love scene happens or something like that. It's the director's job to show what is important to the viewer. As a medium, screenwriting is a lot more of a collaborative effort than what a novel is. A novel you write and it's your baby. And you have an editor who tells you and gives you suggestions, but it's you. And you get to create that world in its entirety. As a screenwriter, you get to write a story. And then that story gets plopped into a world that has a million different moving parts and a million different people thinking about it on a day in and day out basis. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And it can be scary to let your baby out into the world and not know exactly where it's going to go, but if the next story that you have is an idea that would be good on the screen, think about writing it as a screenplay. All right, guys, so that's all I have for today. If you enjoyed this screenwriting video, please hit that thumbs up. That'd be super awesome. If you want to keep following along in my journey as a writer or as a developer or any of these things, hit that subscribe button down below. I would super duper appreciate that as well. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down below. Let me know what you think about screenwriting. Have you ever tried it? Do you plan on trying it in the future? Is it something that you want more information on? And if there's any kind of video that you'd like me to film about screenwriting in the future, leave it down below as well. I'd be super happy to do that. All right, guys, I appreciate you for joining me today. As always, take care, keep writing, and I will see you guys again soon.